And welcome back to another edition of VADA Live. I'm your host, Dan Carrigan, and today we're joined by Page Fehling, who is a veteran broadcaster, leadership expert, presentation savant. Page, we're here to talk to you about just your experience and news dealers can use. Page, welcome to VADA Live.
Thank you so much for having me. This is the first time I've been called a presentation savant, Dan. I like that.
You know, sometimes when we're recording, we just go off script a little bit, Paige. It happens. It really does. And from your background and experience, definitely want to dive into some key topics. And really, for dealers, a lot of presentation involved in this line of work. From your experience in journalism, on camera, leadership training, what do you think someone can do to really stand out presenting on camera or even in front of staff members in their day-to-day communications?
So the good news, Dan, is that the bar is pretty low when it comes to people who are presenting who are not thought of as professional presenters or professional broadcasters. So I think if someone just goes in with the mindset of, I'm going to be myself, I'm going to be a human being who is here to connect with other human beings, you're already starting off like 80% better than so many of the people who will show up and they will have prepared talking points and they will stick to their talking points. And I get it, right? Because we're all uncomfortable in front of a group unless we're really used to doing that. So I think just always remind yourselves, you're just a human being. They're just human beings. We're just talking to each other. It just happens to be sort of a more public conversation than we're sometimes used to, right?
As far as strategies, so some days you absolutely are okay. I can step up. I can do this. It's a great day. When communicating under pressure, are there any strategies dealers can use to really just keep that composure and ensure they're compelling so their message pulls through?
So my number one thing would be to prepare ahead of time and to practice ahead of time, which is so hard to make yourself do. And we all feel a little bit cheesy when we're doing role playing. But if you can find a buddy, and maybe it's someone within VADA with you, right? Because you're all in the same boat, and just go like, hey, I'll play interviewer, you play interviewee. Can we ask each other questions and practice some of the questions that we'll say back to each other? And I don't mean just media interactions either, right? Just conversations that you might be having with a peer or a subordinate or a coworker or whatever, and you just want to kind of run those answers by someone. So actually practicing out loud will help you immensely, because the more you do it, the more used to it you get. And just practically speaking, when you're in this situation, because I know sometimes we all give these theoretical answers and that's super helpful when you think about it, but then you sit there and you go, okay, my heart is still beating 7,000 miles a minute. I still don't know what words are going to come out of my mouth. What can I actually do? And my favorite thing to tell people to do to actually calm their nerves when you are about to have a conversation or do a presentation that you're really just nervous about is to practice simple box breaths. And box breaths are simply breathing in for a count of 4, holding for a count of 4, breathing out for a count of 4, and then holding for a count of 4. And it's actually something that the Navy SEALs do to calm their SEALs during training when they're going through these high stakes training sessions, because it's shown to calm your central nervous system. It slows down your blood pressure. It slows down your heart rate, and it will help you to just sort of access that frontal lobe portion of our brain that we all need to be able to get to speak like intelligent humans. And that's just a practical tip that will actually help somebody calm themselves and get into that mind space.
And talk about something you can implement almost immediately, Paige.
Exactly.
Are there any common pitfalls, and again, with all the dealers and the work that they do, that really they should avoid when communicating with audiences of various sizes, again, including internally and team members?
Yeah, I think, we all tend to, especially as leaders, we can tend to share what we think we know right away before asking our people what they think. And asking more than we tell is one really good way to avoid doing that, right? So I think you might be surprised as leaders when you go to your people first. I mean, this applies as parents. I do this with my kids all the time. And when you go to them and I say, hey, what do you think about this homework assignment, this grade that you got? And they'll bury themselves way worse than I ever was going to say about, what should we do to correct this? And they'll say, I should study for longer, and I should probably put my phone away for half an hour before and for half an hour after so I can be sure that it's done. I'm like, I wasn't even going to mention your phone, but good call, good idea. So I think the same is true in a workplace setting, right? If something goes bad with a customer interaction or a sale doesn't go through, saying to them first, hey, what did you think about that? What did you think we could do differently? Or, hey, who did you see something go well today? What did you see from your peers and from your coworkers who did something great today, rather than us as the leaders always being the ones to say it out loud and to point it out, asking our people first. A, they will probably come up with lots more than you ever would, good, bad, and ugly. And B, it's such an empowering tool to give them, because then they go, yeah, we came up with it. Our boss isn't always just talking at us. They're letting us bring our shining parts to the forefront as well. And that just makes them look and feel good to themselves and to each other also.
For dealers, and they're involved in the local media world and broader as well, really connecting with local stations, broadcast, radio, etc. With your background, Paige, is there any message or guidance to ensure they're getting the most value out of those partnerships?
That is such a great question, because you're right. That is such a strong partnership, historically speaking, right? Local TV and local car dealerships have a really strong partnership, and there's a great way they're all trying to reach the same people, the people in that community. I will tell you, the best thing I ever experienced myself as a reporter is when I showed up to a story and the person that I was interviewing gave me a one-pager about their business and about what we were talking about that day. And I know that seems so antiquated. You can print it out or you can email it to them. But just know, if you are doing, if it's a commercial spot, or if you yourself are being interviewed for something, let's talk about the interview first. What I mean by one pager is the reporter who comes to talk to you, whoever the journalist is, if you're being interviewed for something, they're doing 6 stories that day. They simply do not have the time or the knowledge base that you have. So give them a couple things, pronunciations, give them some stats about your dealership or about sales that year, or anything that you know would be interesting to their audience, so they have it written down and they don't have to worry about what they remember, and they don't have to necessarily ask you about it. Then you can just provide the color answers. And then when it comes to, if you're talking more about the advertisements, the commercials, and the ideas for that, think outside the box. Remember that no one knows your business as well as you do. And no matter how wonderful the salesperson is at the television station, and they are wonderful and I love them to death, but they know TV and they know TV spots. They do not know cars and car dealerships and the community and what that needs. That's you. So think of the outside the box, what you can provide them to help pair those two resources together in terms of what you know about people in your community and what they're looking for in an automobile, and what the TV world knows about who they're going to reach and when, so that you can kind of get those worlds merged, and thinking in terms of not only just the broadcast, but the social media aspect, the online aspect, and marrying all of those things together, just kind of getting creative with it.
I love that point, Paige. It's essentially expertise in a field and relaying that to members of the media and stations who know their area. And it's bringing those two partnerships together. It really dovetails into this next question, where in communicating, just fostering trust and credibility, is there anything dealers can do there? And what are some techniques?
Dan, have you ever heard the phrase, if they'll do it with you, they'll do it to you?
Yes.
I came across that phrase actually reading the book Girl on a Train. I don't know if you've seen that movie or read that book. Now, in that context, it has to do with a woman who she's having an affair with a guy, and she says to the wife, she basically goes, I realized if he's willing to have an affair with me, why won't he turn around and do this to me at some other point too, right? But I've heard it in a professional setting so many times in terms of how we interact with each other and how to build trust, because let's just take gossip, right? Let's say talking ugly about somebody. If you have a coworker who comes to you and says, I'm going to tell you, and I would never typically tell this about anybody, but so-and-so really handled that customer interaction poorly, or so-and-so needs to learn how to fix their hair, or so, it says things, then you can't help but think, they're saying this to me. Like, what makes me not think they're turning around and saying ugly things about me behind my back too? And it may sound like a juvenile sort of middle school kind of interaction when you talk about building trust and building credibility. But I think that the trust and credibility we build with customers comes first from the corporate culture we build with each other. Right? And as a customer, when I go into a business and I see colleagues and coworkers who have each other's back and who treat each other great and seem to really enjoy each other and like each other and respect each other, it makes me feel like these are people who take care of each other. These are people who are going to take care of me. I actually went to go look at a car the other day because we're in the market. I have 2 teenage boys, one who just turned 16, one who's about to be 15, and my husband's car died. So we're buying like 1 million cars right now. I am a dream client. And when I pulled up, The colleague of the salesperson who I had been in touch with came out and he goes, hey, Jack's on a call. I pulled this car out for him because he wanted to meet you, but he's stuck on a call. He sent me out. Also, he told me that you were tall, so I pushed the seat back so you can get in. And I went, oh my God, they just checked so many boxes. A, he had done his homework. I'm 6 feet tall. I am tall. I typically, hit my knee getting in. So he had done his homework, and his colleague already showed me, like, these people take care of each other. And it was just a really positive way to arrive somewhere.
Wow. How did you receive that initially? Was that what you were expecting? I love that story.
I bought the car, Dan. I bought it right away. I received it great. It was such a wonderful, positive interaction to start things off.
Is it just an example of the little things adding up, doing your research? What do you think's at the core there of that dealership doing it so well?
I think I think that's exactly right. And I can't help but think that that is just a part of their culture, because from that moment of that interaction to when I walked in and I didn't walk by a single desk where someone didn't look up and at least make eye contact and wave at me and sort of acknowledge my presence. It was just, you could tell that they had, A, they probably had training, and B, they were living it out, and they didn't seem, it was the attitude of like they wanted to be there, they wanted to act like that. They weren't just sort of going through the motions.
And Paige, you were speaking at a recent HR ADA Lunch and Learn on April 8th. Can you offer a preview?
Yes, I can. So my background, as you mentioned, is in broadcast news, 20 years of broadcast news. So what I do now is I take the principles from the news industry and apply it to a professional setting. And you would be shocked by how much overlap there is, because so much about the world of news applies to the world of really anything, any professional setting that we're in, right? So I talk about things like being camera ready, and that is not just looking good, although you look fabulous today, Dan, and I'm sure the audience, everybody looks wonderful today. But I mean more things like anticipating people's needs, right? Thinking of what they're going to need, what they're going to ask, what they're going to say, and how you can be ready for that, for your people, for your customers, how we turn disaster into delight when something goes wrong, how we can turn that around and sort of make magic out of those mistakes. The importance of taking our commercial breaks in terms of, yes, taking our vacation days, but also just sort of knowing what fills up your cup and what gives you energy, and then using all those tools to communicate effectively with the people in our lives. And I'll give you one specific. Well, I'll give you two. I'll give you one preview. Yeah. The preview is the biggest takeaway people always come away with. It's called the 1-3-1 rule. And for anyone with a background in journalism or any type of writing, you're probably familiar with the concept of one main concept, 3 supporting points, 1 conclusion, right? That's not what this is. This is a different 1-3-1, Dan, but it will be the most useful way that you can help your people figure it out on their own and come to you with solutions to problems. It's a little too detailed to get into on this, so I'll give details on the 8th, on April 8th. But 1-3-1, I think people will come away with a lot. And then the definition of done. And what I mean by that is when you ask for something from your people, be sure they know what you mean in terms of when you're asking how complete you need it to be. To give another personal example for that, in our home, chores, dishes are one of the chores that we rotate through on the week. And when my daughter's week was dishes last week, she left for school, or was walking out the door for school, and I looked at the sink and there was water everywhere and like crusty eggs everywhere and dish towels. And I go, June, your chores is to do the dishes this week. And she goes, Mom, there's no dishes in the sink. And I went over and I went, good point. There are no dishes. The dishes are done. However, allow me to be clear on what I mean by doing the dishes and being done with the dishes. I said, when you leave for school, you need to have cleaned up all of the food. You need to not only have the dishes in the sink or washed by hand and put away, but you then need to dry the water and then put away those dish towels as well. When you leave for school, I expect this kitchen to look like children do not live here. That is the definition of being done with the dishes, right? So when you say to someone, hey, so-and-so is coming in today at 11 to look at a car, can you pull it around for them? And that's what someone does. But the car's not vacuumed out and the seat was not pushed back because this person happens to be tall. I mean, that's an extra step. But, all of the little things that are in place, which spot you want it in, are there no cars around it, etc. The more specific we can be about what we mean by a definition of done for our people, the less chance there is for the possibility of misinterpretation or uncommunicated expectations.
Paige, thank you. And for those just wishing to learn more, take a deeper dive and join Paige in person at HRADA's Lunch and Learn. That's April 8th at the Hilton Norfolk, the Maine. More information can be found at vada.com/VADA events. I'd like to thank you, Page Fehling, for joining us on VADA Live. I'm Dan Carrigan. I'll see you next time.